The Wednesday week is sponsored by the Riverside Cafe, new outside bar now open on match days.
There's a chance here, a great save. A turner from McClare. Terrific goal by Sheridan.
Brexman against Jones. Get in.
You could have two goalkeepers in there that would have trouble saving that.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the Wednesday week, the Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm Lord Hillsborough, and with me on the line, first of all, we better say it first, Mr. Marriott. How the devil are you, Helby?
Oh, I'm back to first choice just because there's no one else here. Is that the case? I'm all right. It was my first day back at work after a 5-day weekend today, which went all right, other than the fact that I cut my finger at lunchtime while zesting a lemon. I realised the ridiculousness of that statement, but it's true. It happened, and the guy at work said you'll have to fill in an accident report form for that. And
your finger.
We might have to do a risk assessment on the grater.
What were you zesting a lemon on to, James?
Well, it was part of what I was having for lunch today. I can give you a full description if you want. Basically, it consists of lemon juice, bit of extra virgin olive oil, some salt, some pepper, and a bit of lemon zest. You mix it all up, then you chop up some radishes, and you just leave them for a couple of minutes in the kind of the lemony fluid, and then you take them out, you put them on the bread, you get an avocado, you mash that into what's left of the lemon juice, and you put that on top of the radishes. It's beautiful. Believe me, beautiful.
It sounds absolutely filthy.
God's sake.
When did this podcast get so middle chuffing class? Good Lord. You know what I had for my dinner this afternoon? A ham sandwich, because I'm not as fancy as Jay.
Speaking of being a middle-class podcast, all we need now is for, I don't know, someone to appear live by video link in France or something.
Hello?
Mr. Davies, how the devil are you all been?
I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It just so happens that you may well be in a certain middle-class place.
Yeah, we're somewhere down there, a little place called Vire in France. So yes, we're all middle class. We're in the gîte as we speak, drinking very cheap cider, which is very, very good. Yeah, it's all good. Like I say, I'm sat here with my beret on and my onions around my neck. I'm not stereotypical at all.
Well, to get us even more middle class, unfortunately, Eddie can't join us today because he's off skiing. Luckily, I'm assuming that Fudge isn't here because he's been arrested. So that keeps us down to earth, boys and girls. Absolutely. Right, then, ladies and gents, let's crack on then, shall we? Because first of all, we've got two lovely games to go through, haven't we? First things first, the Cardiff game. Of course, it was a little bit of an iffy one, this one, wasn't it?
It was always going to be a little bit like that, wasn't it? We know that. I mean, how long is it since we've beaten a Neil Warnock team? It's like, I don't know, 20 million years or something ridiculous. Or it feels like it, doesn't it? So we always knew it was going to be a slog. We knew what Cardiff were going to be about, that they were going to come and they were going to park the bus, and they were going to make life difficult for us. I think it's probably representative of where we are now as a football club, as a squad. The fact that we were finding it hard to break them down, and we've got Fernando Forestieri and Jordan Rhodes to bring off the bench as our options to try and change the game. And boy did it work, because I'm sure we'll talk about it later. But their link-up play for the goal, just superb, and it was going to be that kind of game. It was going to take one moment that changes everything. I thought we played really well. I thought it was a good performance. I thought it was exactly what was needed from that kind of game, considering how fired up old Colin will have got them beforehand. And the fact that, they didn't really have anything to play for other than to try and ruin our weekend, really. And I think they'd heard it was my birthday weekend, so that kind of spurred them on a little bit more to think, right, we're going to try and ruin James's birthday weekend. So I thought we did a really professional job, and I've heard a few people say it wasn't a very good game, or we didn't play very well, it was rubbish. I don't agree with that at all. I thought that we turned in a really professional performance. We created a lot of chances, and ultimately, I'm going to keep going back to this for the games that remain this season. It was about 3 points, and we got them.
Yeah, I mean, I've been banging on, haven't I, recently about this people come and park the bus and we don't have an answer. And I thought for the first time this season we actually had an answer to that. And I think the crowd was behind the team as well. Everybody was getting behind it it just felt like we're kind of pushing them over the line a little bit now, and just keeping going. The short and tall of it is now we just got to win games. Simple as that. As we speak, 3 games to go, and we need to win all those. And we started that off in good form with Cardiff. On not the greatest game you'll ever go to, but it was 3 points, and good to see Colin flapping on the sideline at the end. That was excellent. Everybody taking the piss out of him.
It's always nice to see a flapping Colin, isn't it? And it has to be said, I mean, the team themselves, they did do a little bit of falling over, Colin's team, until, of course, they went to goal down, and then all of a sudden they stopped falling over as well, which was rather strange. Of course, Westwood was his normal self, but the actual performance of the team, as Jay said, it was extraordinarily professional. I can't pick anybody out that had a bad game, really. Can you, chaps?
No, I think it was the last few games. It's kind of we seem more cohesive, and I don't know, we've got a few players back. Hooper's gelled us a little bit, but it seems to be coming together a little bit. Probably at the right time, exactly at the right time. And people are fighting for the places. Padil's coming to form after he's suffered a bit of bad form. He seems to be playing well since he's come back. Just generally, I don't think we've got any performers at the minute. It's touch wood. It's all good.
Absolutely, and we've been chased hard as well by Fulham, aren't we? Obviously, Fulham beat Norwich that same day, didn't they? 3-1, I believe it was. So obviously, they do tend to score before us as well, Fulham, just to give us a little bit of a squeaky bum area, don't they? But yes, it's another very, very interesting game, which I agree with you. I think it was thoroughly enjoyable.
It was. I've said this about a couple of games this season. It was a functional performance and a functional win, and you've got to do that, haven't you, to counter the kind of team that Fulham were going to be. I agree with. I think it was Rich that just said that there wasn't anyone that put in a bad performance. I thought that to a man, everyone did their job well. It wasn't the kind of game where you just sort of think, oh, we're going to get a lucky break or anything. We ground away and we got exactly what we deserved. I don't know if I could pick a man of the match because, as I say, I thought everyone had a pretty solid game. I think Westwood had a couple of good moments. I thought David Jones looked really good again. But across the team, it was a team performance, and it was going to have to be a team performance to win that game, wasn't it?
I think one of the things you mentioned there, obviously, David Jones. To slot in for Hutch after Hutch was having such a marvellous time, I think he's done a brilliant job, and he's sort of getting looked over, if you like, isn't he? Because he does it quietly, he doesn't do it flashy. He's not a Hutch type player where you really notice what he's doing specifically. But I think he's done such a fantastic job, and he doesn't get much of a mention, does he?
I think I said this last podcast, how he's performing, and he'd come in and was going about his business, fairly quietly, which the sign of the spoiler. I think I called him in the last podcast.
I apologise, I wasn't here. I'm stealing your thunder, Obi.
I completely agree with all that, and I think it's very true what you say, Lord H, about the fact that he is a different sort of player to Hutch. Now, anyone that comes in and plays that position when Hutch isn't in the team, naturally, what do? We compare them to Hutch, and I think I've said on the podcast a couple of times, and I've certainly said to my friends a couple of times, that you don't get Sam Hutchinsons in the Championship. You just don't. If he was a fully fit footballer, he's a top 6 Premier League footballer. He's probably a Champions League footballer. It's only because of his injury record that he finds himself in the second tier playing for us. He's much better than the standard of the level that we're at. So you can't have a Sam Hutchinson in reserve to come in and fill in when he's not fit and not playing. We've got a different kind of player in David Jones. It's not actually his natural position that he's playing, and I know this in great depth because I was sat behind his dad at the QPR game, which was fun. And I think it's taken him a little while to adapt to it and get used to it, and he's needed that running the team. But God, he really has done. He really has got used to what that position's about. I think his vision's really, really good. He spreads play really well, and I said all this last week that he's a really intelligent footballer, and I think I'm glad that he's getting a little bit of credit now, and people are. I think there was a bit of Jones knocking going on for a while. I think people were saying, "Oh, it's a waste of money. Why do we spend £3 million on him?" He's showing his worth now, and it's strange, isn't it, that it's kind of around the same time that last season suddenly we started sitting up and taking notice of Lopez again, that he started coming to his own just towards the back end of the season, and exactly the same thing is happening now with David Jones, and we're winning games, and that's normally something that we struggle to do when Hutch isn't in the team.
Absolutely. So, Colin came and went. Of course, it has to be said that before the match, Colin was doing his Colinisms, and he said that he was expecting Wednesday to be in the top 6 over Leeds and Huddersfield, his old clubs, etc., etc. And of course, straight after the match, he reverted to typical Colin, Wednesday just a long ball team, etc., etc. Bless his little coffin socks. There was also the little thing with Carlos as well, as they were sort of changing positions in the at the post-match conference, that Carlos played him a lovely compliment and said, Colin, well, probably not call him Colin, he said, you did a wonderful job with Rotherham, blah, 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 and played him a really nice compliment, and of course Colin turned around and said, well, I'll see you again next year. It's big tail. And he's so sinister when he said it as well, didn't he? Oh, you nasty little sod. He really is such a bitter little man, isn't he? Bless him.
Well, that's Colin Wanker for you.
Right, then on we went to the QPR game then, boys and girls. Now this, I honestly think, was one of the best games of the season. I thought this was a cracking game of football.
I watched this CFAX style, kind of like, I suppose, but it was on Twitter, but it was like watching a game.
Showing your age
CFAX.
there, Rich.
Yeah, well, it's something my dad told me about. I don't know what it meant, but it was like that. But yeah, it was really like in the middle of France. In fact, where were we on Monday? I can't remember where we were. Oh, we were probably in here watching it in the room. I thought we were somewhere. I was going to sound really good. We were somewhere. In fact, I think we might have been in Orange. There we go. A bit of history for you. We were sat there watching it on the phone.
Watching it on the phone, reading it CFAX style. For those of the slightly younger generation, CFAX is what we had before the internet, boys and girls, and it was on your telly. It was brilliant.
Or teletext if it was ITV.
Exactly. Yeah. But no, it was. I thought this was a belting game of football, and to be honest, I was expecting to win it. QPR haven't been going great guns just recently, have they? But they've had the new boss, who we know is a big fan of us as well. We've seen him bouncing at Hillsborough before when he was doing his commentary bits and bobs as well, wasn't he? Bless him.
We met him after the playoff final last year with Mr. Garrido.
Absolutely. Thoroughly nice chap by all accounts. But
top bloke.
All that said, he did say sort of pre-match that they were going to come at the Wednesday, which is brilliant for us because the more teams come at us, the better we can play, don't we?
Yeah, we're on to a winner every time. When somebody comes at us, that's meat and drink for Wednesday, in my opinion.
It was it was a proper game of football. Really, it was end to end. It was tense. There was a fair few chances. There probably should have been more goals, and it was it was a cracking day out. It was a really good day out. It was a good game of football. It had us interested from start to end, and we got the win. I know that a lot of people were quite confident about it. I think QPR had lost 4 in a row or something like that, and we'd won 4 in a row. So going into it, everything was set up for the big banana skin, and that this is the one that we were going to slip up and we were going to lose. We got that. We got the goal. And then when they pulled one back in strange circumstances, and genuinely in the stadium, the QPR guy goes down, and everyone goes crazy for a penalty, and the guy sticks it in the back of the net, and no one celebrated. The fans didn't celebrate or anything because the referee was just doing his kind of no penalty sign, which made it look like he was disallowing the goal, and then pointed back towards halfway, and it was a few seconds later before anyone celebrated, and that felt like a bit of a kick in the teeth, and you just think, oh, is it not going to be our day? We're not going to get that little bit of luck today. But then, we go back up the other end not that long afterwards, and again, we get that little bit of luck with the ball rebounding to Poodle. He sticks it in the back of the net. And I thought second half we did what we've shown we can do time and time again this season, which is when we want to park the bus, when we want to set up to not lose our lead, we can do it really, really well. And there's been a few games this season that we've done that. And I think earlier in the season people found it annoying because they wanted us to be going for. I remember after the Wigan game that we won 1-0, and everyone was like, "No, we should have gone for. We should have won that 20-0." And I'm sure if Fudge was here, he'd probably be moaning about the fact that second half we bringing on Semedo. Semedo obviously is it's a negative substitution in that respect, but. When you've got a lead in this league, it is worth a fortune. It is so valuable, and you've got to hang on to it, and you've got to cling on to it. And actually, when we defend, we can defend really, really well. And that's exactly what we did in the second half against QPR. I'm just a little asterisk at the end of this sentence, and at the bottom, just put "from what I remember."
No shit, Sherlock. There we go. I could be the same. I could be the same after this podcast. But while we're on the subject, Semedo, how's he fit? How well has he fitted in since he's come back and come on and done that 10-15 minute cameos he's been doing and just shoring the whole. He's another spoiler,
I think he's brilliant. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I think
come on and done the biz.
Against Cardiff, we put a little gif out of him against Cardiff, and Cardiff were sort of hovering around the edge of the box. Semedo, you couldn't actually see him. He was in the line doing his job. Chap went round Bannon. Bannon didn't really follow his run, and then Semedo just appeared out of nowhere. It was unbelievable. He just appeared, blocked the ball, and then he ended up forcing an attack as well. And I think, I just love him. You can't help but just absolutely chuffing love him, can you?
Yeah, he's a ledge. Absolute ledge.
It's got to be said that, one thing that I didn't expect to happen, if you asked me, 2-3 months ago, let's say, in January, you asked me to draw up a list of players that I would not expect to be contributing to us winning at this stage of the season, Jose Semedo and Ati Nuyu would have been quite high up that list of players that I would have said they are not going to be playing a role in us cementing our top 6 place. And credit where it's due. And especially for Ati, who, I'll give him a bit of stick when he deserves a bit of stick. He's played a really key role for a few games now, where he's come on and made a real difference. And
he's not played a key role. He's won us the game, hasn't he? Let's face it.
I'm not going to go that far because that's a ridiculous statement. But both of them have done their role well, and you know what I mean. They're probably the longest 2 serving players now around the club, aren't they? With the exception of Palmer, obviously, who went out on loan and came back and whatever. But they know the club really well, and they know what it's all about. And I think that they both, particularly with away fans, that they both have a really good relationship with our supporters. I think Ati gets more stick from fans at home than he does from fans away, who kind of get behind him and give him a really good reception again on Monday. So all in all, credit where it's due to those two. I don't think anyone would have thought that they were going to play the kind of role that they have been doing. I know it's only a 15-minute cameo appearance for Semedo, but there's a reason that he's bringing him on, and the reason is that he's a damn good player when you want to hold on to a lead. And it's worth mentioning that every game that he has come on for that cameo appearance, we've won.
Absolutely. And it is, the Wednesday fans, they do love him, don't they? I mean, we've been sticking the gifts out. I'm sure people listening will have seen our little nonsense that we do after the games. And, of course, both the Cardiff and the QPR games, we put at his lovely little sort of stick ball runs up where he's doing his silky skills. And just to put this into some kind of context, if you like, Westwood in the QPR game pulled this wonderful save off on the long throw. You guys obviously remember that save. It was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful save. Now, to put that into context, that little tweet had 133 likes and 35 retweets. Ati's silky skills from that game, 362 likes and 184 retweets. He's a legend. The Wednesdayites absolutely.
Hang on. Now you've just called him a legend. Now you've just lost all credibility with him.
Not at all.
He's not a legend.
He is. He's an absolute legend.
No, it's a vastly overused word. I would give that to Semedo. There's not many people in our side now we'll call a legend. Certainly not Atty. 1 goal all season, or is it maybe 2? I'm not sure.
Not just about the goals. Atty's been off. Atty's been off with his country. He's brought home some magical footballing Kosovan superpower, and now he can just hold on to the ball at the other end of the pitch for about an hour and a half if he wants to. It's brilliant.
That's all right, but he's a striker. What striker's supposed to do? He's supposed to score goals.
No, they're not. That's a very old-fashioned way of thinking of things. Strikers aren't just there to score goals anymore. If in the QPR game, because again, Atty brought down the ball beautifully. He went round the defender. He passed it on to Fessy. Fessy rather greedily shot when Atty was open. If he'd have passed.
That's considered missed, isn't it? We all know that.
No, he would have
put it. I was in the upper tier. It'd have gone over my head if Atty had hit it. But that's not the point, is it? But is there a serious point here, which is that Atty's always had stick for the fact that he doesn't score goals. Now we've got other players that score goals, so there isn't as much pressure on him, so he can go out and actually play a different role. And not have to worry about the fact that he's not all that good at sticking the ball in the back of the net. And he actually plays better without that pressure.
I saw a really good tweet today from @Jeff SWFC. He's not shit, but he's nowhere near good enough for us when everyone's fit and available. And I think that summed it up.
But he's good at a certain job, isn't he? He's better at holding up the ball in that area than other strikers. So he's essentially... Yeah. A sort of 10-minute at the end specialist, and he does it bloody well, doesn't he? He's sort of the Semedo of the forward area.
You're probably right. There's a reason that he brought him on and not Fletcher, who was also on the bench. He could have brought Fletcher on. He's a similar sort of player, but he obviously feels that Atty offers that little bit more in terms of his holding play and his strength, and maybe the fact that he's not going out looking for goals, which is what you expect most strikers to be like, that maybe now there is more of that willingness to actually just be the guy that holds the ball up and takes it out into the corner, or dribbles it along the touchline, which Atty's actually quite good at doing.
It takes around 15 players.
I'm not sure why no one suggests retraining him as perhaps more of a midfielder, because I think he's actually quite good with his feet and always has been quite good with his feet, and he's quite strong. He's just not very good at scoring goals. Bit of an issue for a striker.
I have 2 little boys sat with me listening this evening on the podcast, because I don't have my microphone.
Do you know them, or is it just that kind of holiday? I don't know.
No, it's just that kind of holiday. No, my sons. So yeah, Reese just made a good point. Do you want to make it, or shall I make it for you, Reese? He was just saying, and he's written it down just so I could read it. Knew he's not better than Rhodes at holding the ball up.
I honestly think that's a decent point. That is a decent point, because Rhodes is. I think that we all thought. I think we've said this before. We all thought when we bought Jordan Rhodes, when we signed him, that he was literally he's a goal scorer. He just stands there. He's what you call a goal raker when you were at school. But he's got so much more to his game, and he does hold the ball up well. He's got some real strength, and I think that as we've seen him every game that he's played, like the more match fitness he's got, the more he puts himself about the place, and he is good at holding the ball up. He really is.
Yeah, I must admit, I said he scored goals when he came here, and I knew he was a good header of the ball. But I think he surprised me with his all-round tireless play. There's a lot gone hidden there. Obviously, goals would be great to come into his game. Just about now would be good if he could have got a couple of 3 here and there. But no, he's been good value so far.
And it's not just that, his defensive work for Jordan Rhodes is brilliant as well. The amount of sort of corners and things he heads away and bits and bobs like that is incredible. I'm always surprised to see him back there. I don't know why, because like James said, you don't expect him. You think he's going to be stood on the halfway line at corners and things. But he's brilliant at that.
Yeah, definite team player.
Fans of other clubs where he's played have given him a little bit of stick for that, though, haven't they? About the fact that he's maybe not as much as a team player, and that he just pop up and score the goals, which is what just makes me wonder whether or not he's approaching things a little bit differently with us. And I don't know whether, I know that he said in all his interviews about how much he wanted to play for us and stuff like that, and you kind of think, yeah, well, he's going to say that, isn't he? But I wonder whether or not it actually does mean that little bit more to him, and it's making him work that little bit harder, because he really has got something invested in this, and he really does care. It's quite difficult to think that about football, because you think wherever they play, they're going to give their all. But I guess, if giving your all and giving your all might be two different things, and maybe we're seeing a Jordan Rhodes that's really prepared to work dead hard here.
Either that or his dad's just told him, now then, young Jordan, get up and down that pitch, otherwise you're grounded, son. I think that's probably the reason.
Flat right ear roll, if you like.
Although he did make a rather interesting tackle at the end of the box, didn't he? Sorry, the edge of the box even, on Saturday, gave away a free kick in not a great area. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, when the actual ref was whipping out his magical spray, he basically walked through the wall whilst doing his magical spray business and got in nobody's way, the dirty little chuffer. But no, again, going back to Rhodes, he's just been brilliant, hasn't he? I know the goals haven't been there for him, which is a shame, but we've scored quite a few goals off his original shots, haven't we, as well? So it just goes to show how much people are sort of following in and sort of picking up his scraps, if you like, which is, again, something we've missed. And it has to be said, again, those same sort of last 4 games has seen the return of Hooper as well, hasn't it? And has he been the difference to this team?
It's a combination of all of those things, isn't it? And talking just before we move on from Rhodes, and I touched on this earlier, but I do want to just mention this, that the goal against Cardiff, it's not the most spectacular goal that we'll score all season, but I actually think, from a technical point of view, that was a cracking goal. It really was, because the way that Jordan Rhodes wins the ball originally, then the flick onto him from Forestieri was like poetry. But if you actually look at the position that Jordan Rhodes is in and the angle of his body to the ball, for him to get that amount of power that all the goalkeeper can do is parry it back out, is exceptionally difficult when he's got very little room to work in. He's got 2 defenders on his tail, and he's at an awkward angle to the ball. So he does just so well to get that shot in and to get that amount of power on it. And he made that goal. He really did make that goal. And credit to Forestieri, because that came out at such a pace, and again at an angle whereby the natural thing to do would be to head that over the bar. It's difficult to keep that down, so he did really well to score as well. So I just thought, watching that back a few times, I thought this will not win a goal of the season competition in anyone's book, but in terms of like the technicalities of it, that is one of our best goals that we will score this season. I think just the combination of everything coming together, and Hooper and everything coming together. I don't think it's a coincidence that the time that's happened is when we started really winning games and putting a run together.
No, absolutely. Although it did become incredibly close to real proper analysis on this podcast, James, which was a little bit scary, actually. But you're quite right.
My bad.
I can't even spell analysis, and I can't even say it, let alone spell it.
That's all that French cider, Holby.
Cheers.
And of course, it has to be said, I mean, we don't tend to speak about other football teams on the podcast, but Wolves have done us a favour, James. So if you'd like to speak about Leeds away at Wolves, by all means, please feel free, Holby. We've said it time and time again.
It was at Leeds, wasn't it? It was Wolves away at Leeds. It was at Ellen Road.
Even better. Absolutely. I think that's the T-shirt for next season.
I've always said that Wolves are one of my favourite clubs in this country. I would never say a bad word about them. I particularly enjoy their football stadium and the view that you get from the away end. But no, I mean, it's good. I mean, there's nothing. I said this a few times to the guys that I was with on Monday, that it's obviously nice to see Leeds drop out the top 6 anyway, but when you consider the fact that they made a pledge at the start of the season to, I think it was 25% of the season ticket cost that they would refund to fans if they don't make the top 6. So if they don't make the top 6, firstly, they don't make the top 6. Secondly, it's actually going to cost them a small fortune to refund loads of money to their fans. It might even have been more than that. It might have been more than 25%. I can't remember because it's Leeds. I don't pay that much attention. But it was. Was that
Mr. Cellino that promised them that?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, enough said.
Crazy man.
But I mean, to bring this to a sort of a serious point, we've been saying it all season. We've been sort of clinging on to that last playoff place without playing brilliant football. We are just coming to our form now, when everybody else that has been in form for the first part of the season just seem to be chuffing it up, or as we like to say, doing a Wednesday. So if we can hit our form now for not just these last 3 games, but then for the running through the playoffs as well, it's very similar to what happened last season as well, isn't it? We weren't fantastic, but then we hit our form for the playoffs, for the running, and it was wonderful. And we've seen, as you guys have said, that change in the crowd as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
There wasn't as many boos. There wasn't as many, if players were making mistakes, we were trying to get behind them more. And the noise that you guys made at QPR was incredible. It was brilliant.
Do you know something I picked up at the steering group last week? And it started off a bit if we get, and as the meeting went on, it got very when, and that wasn't just the supporters that were there. That was the club officials too. It went from a if to when we get there, and there was a very quiet confidence around the room. And I think that kind of just is projecting to the whole club at the minute that the fans are pushing. You know, and we know there's not far to go. That we just one big push, and we can really kind of make this happen.
It scares the life out of me. I'm not used to confidence. It scares the life out of me.
It's just an absolute shivers down my spine talking about it. Just, you know.
I think one thing that is worth mentioning is that, I mean, we've won. Is it 4 in a row that we've won now? We drew the one before it, and yet we're still only 2 points clear in the playoffs, because everyone else has kept up that momentum as well, and the only club that hasn't is Leeds, who were obviously ahead of us. So we still find ourselves only 2 points clear of 7th place, because Fulham keep winning. So I think that there's, you know, I'm adding an air of caution here, I guess, that as much as it feels great at the moment because we keep winning games, but we're not putting any daylight between us and 7th. And ultimately, you know, if we go on the assumption that Huddersfield are home and dry because they've got a game in hand, and because they've got a relatively simple run-in, I think, that you've got, you know, four teams battling for 3 playoff places. One of them is going to miss out, and none of those teams think it's going to be them. There is no team that sat there thinking, well, you know, we'll lose out. And we're also in this crazy situation whereby those 4 teams are all in a position whereby if they win their remaining games, then they will be in the top 6. And that applies to all of us, because if Leeds take 9 points, then either us or Fulham have to lose on the last day of the season, or drop points on the last day of the season, so they'll be in the top 6. And obviously if we do, we will. If Fulham do and beat us, then they'll be in the top 6. So it's this crazy situation where you've got 4 teams battling for 3 playoff places, and all of them can say it's in our own hands, which is, I mean, I can't imagine that's ever happened before, where you end up in that kind of situation. So every single other team around there will have the same amount of confidence that we have, in terms of the fact that they'll be saying that we can do it. So all I'm doing is just adding an air of caution here, which is that, you know, unfortunately it's not our fault. We're doing what we need to do, but we haven't put any daylight between us and 7th place. We've done absolutely what we needed to do, which is that we've just taken, you know, 12 points from 12, 13 points from 15, and, you know, we are well on the right course, but we've got to keep it up. We've got to forget about the games that we've won now, and we've got to go out and win the next 3.
Here's a question. Where would you find all of the following in one place? Chairs, tables, beer, Vic, James, more beer, Dick Yow, Eddie, more beer, and the rest of the Wednesday week gang. That's right, it's the Riverside Cafe's new outside bar. All of your favourite lagers, ciders, soft drinks and hand pump ales are now available outside. Come and see the gang and give it a try. The Riverside Cafe's new outside bar, now open on match days.
Right then, ladies and gents, so let's crack on with the scant little bit of Wednesday news that we have. First things first, it's Trevor's birthday, boys and girls. Old Tricky Trev, who is clearly probably 174 by now, bless him. But we love a bit of Trev, don't we? Those couple of seasons out at the Wednesdays, and he's a legendary football player, isn't he? Let's face it. But those couple of seasons out at the Wednesdays, when he was an older gentleman, shall we say, he was brilliant, wasn't he? Who doesn't have a wonderful memory of Trev?
No, Trev was great on that right wing for a season and a half, couple of seasons, wasn't he? When just you know, for me, I suppose for my kind of first real kind of super player to come to Hillsborough, because he was that in his time. You know, he was the first £1 million signing, etc. In his time, he was one of those players that you think, wow, this is an England international coming to play at Wednesday. kind of before we got all those people in the squads in the 92, 93 time. He was the first one that you thought, wow, and he really did it was a pleasure to watch at times, even if it wasn't maybe a strong point.
He did a decent job as manager, didn't he? Of course.
Yeah.
Well, you can, because there was the Cantona incident, wasn't there? That's unfortunately, that's the one thing that he'll be remembered for.
Yeah, unfortunately,
deservedly so. I had big issues with him in terms of his. I think as a man manager, he wasn't very good at all, and I think we wasted too much time on him, and ultimately we paid the price in the coming seasons. But that's probably a different story, isn't it? But yeah, happy birthday! I know obviously he's not had a great time of late, has he? So a big happy birthday to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, next little bit of Wednesday news, and again, there's not a great deal. As we said, the fans have been rallying around the team, and people are feeling it. Pete McKee has put out a wonderful, wonderful picture of his selling squeaky bum cushions for us all, ladies and gents. Now, as you know perfectly well, I'm a big fan of the squeaky bum cream. It is a staple in my match day bag, shall we say. Jeeves quite often pulls on his rubber glove and applies it.
You'll not be having a word with your lawyers for copyright on the squeaky bum TM.
No, I'm disappointed. I didn't think of squeaky bum cushions myself. I know that Jeeves would love a cushion because it'd save him pulling on the glove.
The cushions at Hillsborough were legendary. 20 pence for a cushion, and when we were shit, did they get launched on the pitch?
That's exactly what I thought when I saw that cartoon. Is that just imagine that we go 1-0 down against Fulham. If you've got squeaky bum cushions, you're gonna, you'll let your bum take whatever it needs to take. That cushion's going on the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah.
It'd be like an Ibiza foam party with just squeaky bum cream all over the place, flying from these cushions. It'd be amazing. Love it, absolutely love it. So yes.
Do you go to?
Pardon?
What kind of parties do you go to?
Oh, I go to special loading parties that you wouldn't want to know, Albin. You wouldn't want to know.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Another little bit of Wednesday news. This is really super important as well. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new range of mugs and cards now available in the Megastore. Mugs and cards. So not only can you get your mugs and cards, but you can now get lovely new Welcome Wednesday Little Baby Owls, boys and girls, cards as well. So if you do are in need of both a mug and a card to send off with your squeaky bum cushion, then it's all available in the Wednesday Megastore.
True story. I got a new teapot for my birthday at the weekend, so maybe a new mug to go with it might not be a bad idea. I might pop it on Saturday.
Hang on, again, don't take offence by this, James, please. But do tea snobs drink out of mugs, or do you have like a china cup to go with your teapot?
Well, I'm not going to just drink it straight out of the teapot. You've got to put it in something. You need some kind of, decanting vessel, don't you?
Yeah, but would your vessel of choice be a cup and saucer or a mug?
No, it's a mug. It's always a mug. I hate cups. I hate them, and I hate going anywhere that's fancy that serves you it, because you can't get your finger through that thing. So you just end up. It's like drinking out of a thimble. It's the most ridiculous thing. So I would honestly If you served me a cup of tea served in one of those massive Sports Direct bowls that did the rounds a few years ago, I will be happy as Larry, because I think it's all about size. That's what it's about when it comes to your decanting vessel.
Miley is a tea belly in our family, and he insists now, and he's just from a 10-year-old kid, on having tea when we're out, having tea in a teapot. And he drinks it with a cup and saucer with a pinky sticking out.
And so he should. Riley, I think Riley is certainly in line to take over the Lording throne if that's how he's drinking his tea. Once I've got far too old for it on there. I think we'll have to.
I was drinking Darjeeling tea at the start of this podcast. Surely that's like lordship worthy.
Yeah, but we know you.
I did actually once buy a lordship on the internet. Have I told you this story?
No.
I must have done. I bought a lordship on the internet. It's a few years ago now, off eBay. Except I was quite drunk at the time, and on eBay when you're buying something, you have to select your different options and stuff. I bought a ladyship by mistake. So I've still got it somewhere. I'm technically Lady Marriott of Glenmore. is technically my official title.
Well, from now on, that will be your official title on the podcast. Lady Marriott. If I'd have known this all this time, James, we could have been Lord and Lady together. It would have been marvellous.
You're all right, sunshine. I like you, but yeah.
To be honest, if you turn up at the Lording Society with your fancy tea and your Sports Direct mug, it'd just embarrass us both. Oh, boy.
Just be thankful I don't turn up with my squeaky bum cream.
The squeaky bum cream is perfectly acceptable in the Lording Society as long as your butler is putting it on your behalf. It's absolutely
on your what? On your behalf.
On your behind, on your behalf.
We're back to carry on podcasting, aren't we?
There's very little Wednesday news again this week, boys and girls. Can you tell that we're filling slightly? However, pulling it back to the Wednesday news, there has been not just a team of the week, but a team of Easter that has been produced from the EFL as well. And Mr. Padil is in that team as well. And it is nice because Mr. Fox has been playing an absolute blinder, hasn't he? He really, really has. So to have that proper sort of scrap now for that left back position has been fantastic. Do you think this is probably what's given Mr. Badil that bit of an oomph to really, really, really pull this out the bag?
He was out of sorts, wasn't he? He didn't look the same player as the one that we got used to last season. He was making mistakes. I think that he was struggling with generally whoever he was playing on that left side with. He was struggling in terms of building up much of a rapport or a partnership, even though it would often be Fessy who he's played with before, and he was just going through one of those periods, and he's had a bit of time out, and he's got his chance and he's come back in, and he looks like the player that we fell in love with last season. He's come back as strong as he was then. He looks confident coming forward. He's been solid defensively, and he's played some real key parts in our wins. Not least the fact that he scored the winning goal on Monday against QPR. So I think absolute credit to him for the fact that he's had that little bit of a break, and it's allowed him to just kind of pull himself together a little bit and get over whatever it was that he was going through, and come back as strong as we've seen him before. So real well done, and he really does deserve it, because I think he's been our most consistent player over the last 2-3 games, with the exception of David Jones, obviously, who's my new favourite player right now.
Right. One of the little sort of snippet of Wednesday news, if you like. Did you guys see the wonderful picture tweeted out by the train company? I can't remember which jumping train company it was now, but East Midlands Trains, thank you, of the Wednesday team on the station on there. Now, to me, that looked like, it reminded me of, remember the old postcards you used to get where there was lots of things happening on the postcards, and there was quite a lot happening on there. Did you happen to notice Fessy and Dave staring at each other? And not Fessy, I apologize. Fessy just looked freezing. Fletcher and Dave staring at each other. Fletcher had an interesting look on his face, and Dave looked rather mad on there. Do you think there was some gentleman's area grabbing on this photo? What was going on there, Gabs? Any ideas?
Well, I need to look at a picture now you said that, because I didn't notice that.
Bring it up. If you listen on the podcast right now, bring up the pic.
I compare all photos now to the one that they took in Amsterdam, where they were all in fancy dress. So if I see any photos on the internet now, I take one look at them. I'm like, no, it's not as good. I'm not interested. And unfortunately, you're right that it was quite a good picture, but it wasn't as good as the Amsterdam one. So unfortunately, I've not paid any more attention to it since then.
We did have a few tweets about it as well. A few people mentioning that Leuven looked like he was dressed in some sort of baby grow, and Bully was the only person that sent to have this wonderful silver case. And I want to know what's in Bully's magical silver case. It's just a bit weird. Do you think he's got some kind of Scottishness in there or something? I really don't know.
It's Jermaine Johnson. He's got him in there just in case we need him. Super sub later in the season. That's where we keep him now.
Haggis and whiskey. Not to be stereotypical, obviously. But I'm looking at the picture now, and there is a young lady in front of Fletch and Nuiu, and it looks like Sasso's looking down at her backside. Fletch has had a go at it, and Nuiu's got a bit upset because he wanted to get there first. That's what I'm reading from it.
That's because you've been on the cider, Obin.
How dare you?
Before we move on from the news, I just want to mention something. It's not really Wednesday related, but it sort of is. And that is, I just wanted to say a very quick kind of congratulations and well done to Brighton for winning promotion. And I know that a lot of Wednesday fans have probably not got that much time for Brighton, but I made various trips there last season and witnessed one of the most amazing evenings of football that I've ever experienced, which then went into an amazing evening where the staff of the club, the opposition fans in the city centre afterwards could not have been nicer. And I've got a lot of time for the club, and I'm really pleased for them. They really deserve it. Obviously, they felt quite hard done to last season. Which we're not going to complain with because we took advantage, but I do just think that it's a club that deserves a crack at the Premier League. So I just wanted to just throw in a little congrats to them.
Yeah, that's fair play. I think they've been head and shoulders the best team in the division this year, without a doubt.
It's just nice that Newcastle are not going to win the Championship, isn't it? They're not going to win the league because they've spent all season thinking they're just going to walk it, and I love the fact that Brighton are going to steal it from them.
Congratulations, Brighton. Fair play. Couldn't have happened to a nicer club.
Whether you're celebrating a birthday, a wedding or anniversary, maybe you've passed your driving test, or you've landed a new job. Well, whatever your reason for a party, the Riverside Cafe is the perfect location on Catch Bar Lane overlooking Hillsborough Stadium. To inquire about hiring us for your function, call 07989 856 054 or 0114 232 6121.
Right, then, ladies and gents, let's crack on then, shall we? Next little bit we've got coming up, of course, is the derby game, boys and girls. Now, this is, well, they're all good. We can say it now for the rest of the season. They're all super important games. We have to win all these games. Now, let's not forget that Derby are a very good club and somewhat of a bogey team for us, aren't they? If you look back at the record against Derby, it's not great. But then if you look back at the record against Neil Warnock teams, it's not been great. So those records are meant to be broken. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do that against Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's a season of us doing things that we don't normally do, isn't it? And I think that we're a different outfit this season. I think that we were very unlucky at Derby earlier in the season. I know they beat us 2-0, but we should have had a penalty. They should have had a man sent off very early in the game for handling on the line. And if that happened the way that it should have done, it would have been a different afternoon of football. But they're in an odd position at the moment. That obviously it's not been the kind of season that they wanted. They were very, very poor at the start of the season. Then Steve McLaren came in and it looked like they were going to make a push for the playoffs. They dropped off again. And then I think since Gary Rowett's been there, we've seen them sort of galvanise a little bit. I don't know whether or not playing a team that hasn't got anything to play for at this time of the season is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure it makes much difference in the Championship because I think every team goes out thinking that they can win every game. The thing will be that there's players there that are going to be playing for their new manager. They're going to be playing to try and make sure that they stay within his plans for what will be, I think, a fairly radical overhaul of that squad during the summer. So, there's a big danger that's associated with that, and it's going to be hard work. It's going to be difficult. I think every game that we've played over the last 4, starting with the Rotherham one, I've said that the next game is going to be the hardest one that we'll have in the run-in. And I think they probably all have been in their own way. And I think the same about Derby. I think that they'll give us a real tough test, a really, really tough test. It's a shame that the other teams around us have been winning because we've not got that buffer. I said when there were 6 games to go, and I said we need to win 4 of them. And in actual fact, I don't think that's going to be enough. I actually think we need to win 5 of them, which means winning 2 of the next 3 games. And I think that Derby's going to have to be one of them. I think that we've got to find a way of going out there and winning. The good thing is that Carlos has shown over the last few games that we can do that now. We can find ways of winning games where once upon a time we wouldn't have done. It is a different outfit now. We've got different ways of going about things, and my hope on Saturday is that he does what needs to be done for us to be able to go out there and win that game. And it might actually be that because Derby are playing without any pressure, they might come and they might come out and really come at us and try and show the manager what they can do, which will probably suit us. But until it comes to Saturday, I don't think we'll know.
They're a real enigma, Derby, don't they? They kind of promise so much, and you look at the players they've got. They should be doing much better than they are, and that's what surprised you a little bit. But I suppose, I'd say we haven't got to face Chris Martin, but then again, we have on the last day of the season because obviously he's on loan at Fulham, which seemed a very, very strange kind of player to get rid of. Which obviously wasn't. I think they tried to get him back, didn't they? When Steve McLaren came back into it. But that was a real bizarre decision, I think, from them, because he's the kind of player that you'd want him kind of in your side, if not definitely in your squad in this league, without a doubt. I think we've got to get a win. It's now for me. I disagree with you slightly, James. I think we need to get 3 wins out of 3. I think it's as simple as that, and that'll take care of it.
Well, technically, even if Fulham win their other 2, as long as we beat Fulham on the last day of the season, we actually only need to win one of those 2 other games. But unfortunately, the order that we're playing them in, we can't go out and on Saturday and think, well, it's all right, we can afford to draw this one or whatever. It is a must-win game, as it's going to be at this stage of the season. And I'm sure at some point, if we keep winning these games, that we'll get that little bit of luck where someone else slips up. It's not happened so far. Fulham did their slipping up at the same time we were doing our slipping up. And I don't particularly get the impression that they're going to kind of that's going to change anytime soon. I think that they'll carry on winning as well. So all we can do is go out and win football games, isn't it? What I do want to just try and get across is the importance of the crowd on Saturday. And we've seen this in the last couple of home games where the crowd have really risen to it and really kind of shown what they can do. And I saw a great tweet earlier on, which was the last 17 games at Hillsborough where there's been a 30,000 plus crowd. So 17 games played, we've won 12 of them, drawn 5 of them, lost none of them. And I think that just proves just how important the crowd can be when we've got a bumper attendance. I don't know whether or not it's going to be above 30,000 on Saturday. I really hope it is. I really hope fans come out in their droves and get behind the team, because we can make that difference. And I feel a bit like Carlos now making his rallying call, but I can't think of any other way of putting it really, other than the fact that just that tiny little 0.1% difference, if we can make it in this league, is the difference between a draw and a win. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with that 110%. We can make a difference now, and I think we will.
So we bloody well should as well. We've got our job to do. We've said it time and time and time again, and it does look as though that things are changing. The Newcastle game at home was incredible from the Wednesday nights. It was brilliant. Again, I know it was a slightly different situation, but away at QPR, the noise that those guys were making was just unbelievable. It was like a home game, because we completely outsung what was left of the QPR fans there. It was brilliant. And again, bringing it back to the Derby game, they did do us a favour by beating Fulham, so we know they've got a decent win in them. But at the same time, Brentford beat them 4-0 as well, didn't they? So obviously their away form tends to be a little bit more iffy than their home form. And obviously if the Wednesday nights get behind them, then we can just absolutely crush them. It'll be amazing, absolutely amazing. Of course, having a quick look at the running after Derby, we've got Ipswich. They're a team that are going nowhere. The mid-table, hopefully they'll all be on the beach. And then, of course, we've got Fulham. If we do look at the the run-ins for the team around us as well, we'll have a little look at Leeds, first of all. Obviously, they've got Burton. Now, Burton are playing at home on Saturday, and we know that they're very, very good at locking up, don't we?
Yeah, tough side. We found it tough against them twice this season, so yeah, absolutely.
And they have still got something to play for, because they're not... It is a possibility that they could get dragged in to a proper relegation scrap, so they'll still be fighting for their lives against Leeds as well, won't they? Then Leeds have got Norwich, and obviously again, I don't think Norwich are going to be thinking of getting the playoffs, but they're going to want to finish the season well after it being the first season in the Championship. And then, of course, Leeds have got Wigan, which, they're chuffed. Either way, we're looking at it, basically. If it does come down to a sort of a final day scrap for Wigan, that's only going to work in our favour on there, isn't it? So, fingers crossed, Wigan will still have something to play for on the last game of the season. And then, of course, Fulham, they've got to play Huddersfield. They've got to play Brentford. Again, I really like Brentford as a club. I really, really, really do like them. But they are in that sort of situation where they've not got anything to play for other than pride.
Don't forget the fact that they are local rivals. They are, it's not on the same scale, but they are to us what United are. Brentford hate Fulham with a passion. Hate them, so they will want to go out and give their absolute all in that game. So they'll be well up for it.
Absolutely. So Fulham do have, I would say, a more difficult running than we do. Obviously, we faced them on the last game of the season. Hopefully, by then it'll all be done and dusted, and we can have that really odd game where we relaxed against Wolves last year, didn't we? We put out essentially a second string team. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to do that as well. And then, of course, the other team that are still in the mix, if you like, are do you think Huddersfield could possibly get dragged into this? Obviously, they're playing Fulham, they're playing Wolves, and we all know that Wolves are wonderful at beating our playoff rivals, which is fantastic. And then, of course, they play Birmingham as well. And Birmingham are a team that are just odd at the moment. Obviously, Zola's gone, hasn't he, from Birmingham now after...
Sorry, you mispronounced shit then, sorry.
I apologise. But again, Birmingham, when Zola took over, they were 7th in the table, weren't they? And now they are essentially still fighting a relegation scrap, aren't they? So fingers crossed they'll be coming out swinging as well. So yeah, out of the run-ins, I think, fingers crossed, we've got the easiest, for the want of a better term. I know it's not certainly going to be easy, but I think we have the one with the less pressure, shall we say. Do you guys agree?
I don't know. I think that the Championship is such a weird league that anyone can genuinely beat anyone. I think at this stage of the season, who you're playing, it's going to have a bearing on things, of course it is. But ultimately, it really comes down to yourselves. It comes down to whether you do the right things, whether you get the basics right, and whether you've got enough to score goals and win games. And I know it just makes it sound so simple, doesn't it? But ultimately, it's the team that scores more goals than the opposition on those 3 occasions that will finish in the playoffs. And we know it's in our hands. We know what we've got to do. I think we've got 3 difficult games, and I don't disagree with what you said actually about the fact that you look at the teams around you, and is there anyone that you would necessarily swap for? On paper, you might say Leeds, but actually for us, the fact that we play Fulham on the last day of the season is, as it stands right now, probably a good thing. It may be if we win the next couple that we might look at it and think of it as a bad thing because it would allow them to trump us on the last day of the season. I don't know, but it's in our hands, isn't it? We've just got to do what we've been doing for the last few games, and if we can do that another 2.5, 3 times, then we're there. We're home and dry.
Absolutely. Just to get a good idea of what's what. Reese, Riley, are you guys still there? Yeah. How do you think we're going to do on this playoff running? Do you think we're going to win all these games, boys?
Yes.
In a bit, will you sing for us?
Maybe.
Well, have a little practice. Later on, shall we do we're on our way or something like that?
You won't get me singing that, by the way, because I've a superstitious thing about singing it till we're actually at Wembley.
You'll forget words anyway. You've had too much to drink. Right then, ladies and gents. So that's going to bring us to an end of this week's show. Mr. Marriott, Old Bean, if people want to get hold of you over there on the podcast, where can we do that?
Over there on the podcast?
Over there on the podcast.
On Twitter, you can find me at James Marriott. I've got to give a special mention here to a guy called Jordan Lincoln. I'm in the process of converting Jordan into a Wednesdayite, so I said that I'd give him a shout out on the podcast. So everyone say a big hello to Jordan. Hi, Jordan.
Hello, Jordan.
There we go. So that's done. Usual deal on Saturday. I'll be knocking around. If anyone's knocking around wanting, I'm probably going to need 2 or 3 beers before the game, just for a change, just to settle those pre-match nerves. So yeah, hopefully see everyone on Saturday.
Fantastic. Mr. Davies, old beanie, people want to get all of you over there on the Twitterage. Where can we do that?
You can find me at Dickie Owl, or you could ring me on 0800 France for the next few days. Unfortunately, I'm travelling back on Saturday and won't get back in time, I don't think. Unless
Bloody rubbish part-time fans.
Really, really put the foot down. I'm gutted about it. I'm even thinking about trying to get an earlier train, but how well I'll go down with the missus or get on a tunnel a bit earlier, I've no idea. I think the kids would love it, but she wouldn't. There we go. There we go.
Of course, if you'd like to get hold of me over there on the Twitterage, you can do that at Lord H. That's L0RD_H. Get on the podcast at TWWcast, and of course in all the usual places as well, on the Facebooks, on the YouTubes, and everywhere else. Ladies and gents, please do tell your friends about the podcast. Let's get everybody up and running for the end of this season, and they can listen to Mr. Davies and Lady Marriott and myself really push the guys on over the line.
You know, you tell a story and you regret it straight away.
Oh dear, James, you will regret this one.
Honestly, I don't know how we've not heard this story before. I'm going to really enjoy this. It's going to be marvellous. And if you ever want to go shopping with the Lady Hillsborough or go for afternoon tea, just let us know, James. I'm sure she'd be happy to have a play date with all the ladies together. All the Lord ladies. Right. See, Reese and Riley, obviously, I've been listening in this evening. You can either get boys in the background there. Boys, can you give us something to sort of really G the Wednesday actual? We've got to remember, there's a couple of people listening to this right now. You could be the difference for Sheffield Wednesday for this season. To get everybody up and running, can you give us a little chorus of We're on Our Way? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3.
We're on our way to the Premier League. We're on our way. How to get there, I don't know. How to get there, I don't care. But I know that West is on our way.
It's absolutely world-class from Marcus.
There's a chance here, a great save by Turner from McClare. A terrific goal by Sheridan.
Brexman against Jones. Get in.
You could have 2 goalkeepers in there that would have trouble saving that.
Right, if you want to get hold of me over there on the podcast, ladies and gents, of course, you can do that at Lord H, not on the podcast. Oh, for goodness sake.
You stop saying that.
It's all going terribly wrong. I apologise. Let's try that again, shall we?
If you want to get hold of the podcast on the podcast, it's at podcastonthepodcast.co.uk.
You see, I very rarely drink when I'm doing podcasts, and when I do, I just completely chuff this last bit up.
Can we find you at Lady Marriott as well, Jim?
I've genuinely got friends that call me Lady Glenmore because of that.
You'll have a few more by the weekend, don't worry.
Yeah.